Yo, what up? Today's guest on the Take Command podcast, Command Center podcast, former Washington tight end Logan Paulsen, now NFL analyst, is joining us today. We're going to talk about OTAs. He's going to give us a couple hit points on each of the Commanders draft picks, what they have been doing in OTAs. We also look at the offense, we look at the tight ends. We talk about Cole Turner. We talk about different personnel, 14 personnel. Wow. In the spread, that's interesting. And we also going to talk about Sam Howell. We're going to get into Sam Howell. And we're going to talk about the good and the bad. Coming up right after this, Logan Paulsen.
This is Hog Farmer Chris and the 2022 Commanders Fan of the Year. Before you listen to Red Zone in the Lab podcast, I want to thank you for your support in bringing awareness to the Hog Farmers Charitable Foundation, which helps children and their families affected by pediatric cancer. You truly make a difference. And with that being said, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube.
Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. I am Deuce, and joining me today, which is now a friend of the podcast, Logan Paulsen, Take Command podcast, the Command Center podcast, all good things Commanders. Logan, how are you doing?
I'm great, man. It's good to be called a friend of the podcast, man. That's nice.
Yes, for sure. So it seems like we haven't had too much drama at what is it, Commanders Park the last few months, right?
Yeah.
No sale going on, no drama, none of that good stuff, right?
I know. It's a lot of stuff's going on, but it's fun now because we're talking about OTAs, we're talking about minicamp, like it's talking about the fun stuff. It's not so much of that logistical stuff as selling the team and things like that. So, it's nice. It's nice for a little change up.
Yeah, most definitely. So, let's get right into some OTAs. So just want to go back a little bit to the draft, just to get your take on the Commanders picks and any surprises or anything that you felt that they missed over. How did you feel post-draft?
You know what? I thought they did an excellent job. I think, Emmanuel Forbes was a guy that I had an extremely high evaluation on. And the only thing that I was kind of docking him for was his physical size. But in terms of film and play on the field, it's hard. There was no one in the class that had better film than him, outside of maybe Witherspoon from Illinois. So with the pick, I loved it. I thought they could have maybe traded back, but you need a dance partner, and I think the process there at that pick is excellent because you get the guy that you wanted. It's come out now recently that Ron really wanted Darnell Wright or Emmanuel Forbes, and I think they got the guy they wanted. So good job there. Good football player. He's done a great job in OTAs and minicamp so far. And the other guy is Quan Martin, a guy that I loved his film. Like he was just a very good football player, plays outside corner, plays safety, plays nickel, plays Buffalo nickel, kind of do it all. Great athlete, physical football player. Maybe not the most physical tackler of all time, but a guy that gets people on the ground. Fred Smoot always says he's a tackler, not a hitter. And I think that's a very fair characterization of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's good at that. And then Ricky Stromberg is a guy that I really liked his film. He's a good athlete, plays kind of exclusively center in my mind. But probably I think kind of just outside of my top kind of cluster of centers, but a very good football player. I got to talk to him a little bit. Very good kid. Going to be a good pro, I think. It'll be interesting to see his impact this year because they did bring in Nick Gates to kind of fill out that center role. And then Brendan Daniels. Excuse me if I'm saying that incorrectly. But I think he's a tremendous athlete. I think he probably projects to guard, kind of like Sadiq did. I know they want to try him at tackle. That's fine. If you wanted him to be tackle, I think there were other guys around that area that I liked more. That doesn't mean I dislike Daniels. I think he, again, tremendous athlete. One of the most athletic tackles at the combine in the draft this year. Very raw technically, some learning to do there, but had a couple conversations with the guy. I think he thinks about football at a high level, which is good. And it'll be interesting to see how he progresses over the next couple of months because, once the pad's on, obviously playing tackle looks a little different. So that'll be interesting to check out. And then KJ Henry is a guy who I think is a little undervalued, honestly, in the draft. And so to get him in the 5th round was awesome. He's kind of been moving around in the front here in Washington. I think he's showed some good ability. He's not like, I think the thing that probably demoted him a little bit, he's not great at anything, but he's good at a lot of stuff. And
Mhm.
so when you see something like that, that's encouraging. Chris Rodriguez is a guy that I loved his film of. I wasn't sure if it fit a need exactly here in Washington, but I think he's a heck of a football player. Plays the game in a way that I really admire with a lot of physicality, a lot of toughness. So love that. And then Andre Jones is a guy that I think you take a flyer on in the 7th round, who's got a lot of pass rush upside, got a frame that gets you excited. You know, he's 6'5", 6'4", got 34-inch arms, great
Yeah.
length, plays with good power. So I like their draft quite a bit. I like their free agent signings too. I think they did a great job there. So, I think the only kind of issue I would have would be Braden Daniels. But again, I don't dislike that player. I just had other tackles I liked more at that spot. And that's just my personal opinion. And obviously the Washington Commanders and their front office disagree with me, and that's totally fine. And I'm excited to see what he does here in Washington.
Yeah, good takes. So the tight end room.
Sure.
Last year you really educated me about Cole Turner, and also about Curtis Hodges.
Mhm.
I really like Curtis Hodges. I was really expecting to see a lot of him, but unfortunately injuries happened, especially during the preseason. That's
Sure.
why we got so, was able to see a lot of Amani Rodgers during the preseason. But looking at, Amari Rodgers is expected to be lost for the year.
Mhm.
What do you look at? I mean, how do you look at this tight end group? A lot of people want us to try to go get somebody, but I really like this tight end room. I believe Ron and company likes this tight end room. What do you like about this tight end room?
Well, Deuce, I think you and me are of the same mindset there. I think, especially through OTAs, if you had any questions about needing a tight end, I think Logan Thomas looks great. He looks kind of like old Logan Thomas. Him and Sam seem to have a nice chemistry. Not the best separator of all time, but uses his size, uses his length, uses his feel to kind of get open. Excuse me. And I think that's excellent. And then obviously John Bates has had some very productive days. They're not running the football a ton right now because of kind of the structure of the offseason program at the moment. But he's done a great job catching the football. Kind of, again, not that elite athlete, but very soft hands and been very consistent over the OTA minicamp phase. Cole Turner looks like he's picking up from last training camp, getting a lot of opportunities to run choices and run snags. You can see the suddenness, maybe not the top end speed, but the suddenness in the short area is very, very high. And then Curtis Hodges is, he's a very special football player in that he's 6'8". He's got 34-inch arms. He's got a 37-inch vertical. Like he's a special guy. And so while losing Armani to that room is a major bummer, because I thought he was poised to kind of have a very, very, very special year. They do have that room I feel like is very well flushed out at the moment. And I'm excited to see what they look like when pads are on. And I'm excited to see what they look like in the joint practice, because I think there's a ton of potential. And I think Logan Thomas, I think Logan Thomas seems to be kind of poised to kind of pick up where he left off from a couple years ago.
That's very exciting. I mean, he looked good when I was there a couple of weeks ago. So did
you
Cole
were there?
Turner.
You didn't say it was up to me? What's going on?
No, you wasn't there. You know I was looking. It was
all right.
Yeah, it was a couple Thursdays ago. I think it was the 23rd, I think.
Okay. I did go on vacation for a little bit, so maybe that's right.
Yeah. I was looking for you with no shoes on, walking around on the field. So like Cole Turner, he looked bad. I think especially for his route running, I think he's improved there. But I just want to talk about, you posted something on Instagram, of course, because you're still not on Twitter yet, but we're still working on that. About using what's that, 12 personnel, I think
13 personnel.
Yeah, 12, 13 personnel with the tight ends, and you kind of show something that Kansas City did to be able to hit like a John Bates type tight end. Like, can you just kind of break that down and how you think, like, will we really be able to run plays like that with the personnel we have?
I think absolutely. I think, it's crazy. Like in yesterday and then on Monday or Tuesday, they ran out 14 personnel, which is 4 tight ends and 1 running back, and they were in a spread formation. And I thought, that probably looks crazy to a lot of people, but if you can get the defense to match in base defense, you got Antonio Gibson, and you've got all these playmakers that can catch the football. So I think that's actually a pretty good situation to be in. So I absolutely think they're going to utilize that skill set. I do think, they ran, in the Instagram play that I was discussing, they're in 13 personnel. 13 personnel is there's 3 tight ends, 1 running back, and basically in that, when you put that personnel on the field, a lot of teams think they're going to run the football. And when they think run the football, they bring in extra defensive linemen. So in that look, they're kind of in their version of the Cinco front. They have 5 defensive linemen, they have 2 linebackers, and as a result, not a lot of great cover players. And they are in a 5-down blitz look. So basically, they call it like a 1 dog or 3 dog, which is. So you've got 5 rushers and you're playing cover 3 behind it. So you got those, corner, safety, and another corner, and then the safety and the 2 linebackers are your underneath players. Usually in cover 3, you have 4 underneath coverage players. Obviously, in this look, because it's a fire zone, you can't do that. So they are short in coverage, and these 2 linebackers have to cover so much grass just because you're in 13 personnel. So I think that those types of decisions and those types of assessments of how defenses are going to match certain personnel groupings will certainly lend itself to kind of getting those guys on the field. And I also think another interesting one is, like getting into 12 or getting into 21 personnel with B-Rob and Gibson in the backfield, because that kind of plays like 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receivers if you play it right. And if the defenses are matching you in certain ways, like, you can really exploit that. And I think when you look at EB over the course of minicamp, over the course of OTAs, there's a ton of opportunities to kind of manipulate defenses with personnel. And I think the tight end group allows you to do that. The running back group allows you to do that. And even a guy like Curtis Samuel allows you to do that, because he can play. You can get out there with 5 wides, have a guy who can play running back. So I would be really attuned, if I'm a fan, to those types of personnel decisions and how they impact defenses, because I think you're going to see them a lot.
When it comes, so like the Cole Turner, what's his ceiling? Because I really like Cole Turner. Hopefully he can be that tight end that we can keep around for a few years. We know Logan is getting a little up there, but what do you think his ceiling is?
That's a really good question. When you watch him in practice, I think he could be kind of that pass catching F for you, depending how you designate it, kind of your H-back type guy. I'm trying to think of a good comparison for him around the league. I think the most obvious one, that everyone knows is like Travis Kelce, right? He's the guy in that offense. It's the F move guy. Obviously, he's not Travis Kelce. I don't think his ceiling is Travis Kelce's, but I do think he can be that guy, have a role like that. Maybe Jimmy Graham later in his career, kind of a guy who gets open with size, understands route concepts really well. So yeah, I think he could definitely be a contributor, maybe like a 40 to 60 catch a year guy, which is pretty dang good, So I think the ceiling is pretty high for him. It's just about, can he stay healthy and can he kind of do it versus elite defenses? Because, he's a very twitched up athlete, but he's not overly fast. So can he kind of work and find a role that fits his skill set at this level? I don't know.
Red Zone in the lab. Be right back.
Before we get started with the podcast, I want you all to go check out You Grow Girl. That's Grow, Grow, written by a dear friend of mine, Jay Smith. It's for daily affirmations for Black women. It is filled with beautiful, colorful images of Black women and powerful affirmations. You can find it at Amazon at Amazon.com.
We're back. Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce.
When it comes to the offensive line, what are you seeing out there?
That's a really good question. So it's really hard to evaluate the offensive line at the moment, just because they're not doing a lot of team stuff in the way that they used to do team stuff. So, for example, this year, they would basically just run practice. So you'd run your runs, you'd run your passes, you kind of do everything together. And every period, of the 7 periods in practice would all be team. So there was no 7-on-7. It was team pass, and you do 2 team passes, and you do a team blitz. And so the offensive line was out there for, 40 to 55 plays. Now they're out there for 20, so
wow.
And they're only out there for passes. And all the other stuff they do is.
Oh yeah, we heard it ain't running no running plays.
Yeah. So it's really hard to kind of gauge where that group is at. I think they seem to be doing a good job of communicating and passing stuff off and developing, but that's a group that, really, unless you're kind of banging around every day and you get a big sample size, it's really hard to evaluate. So I think that group, I'll say this, like they look fine, but I wonder about how much stress they're actually receiving on a day-to-day basis when it comes to team stuff. So I know Juan Castillo and Travell Wharton are working extensively with those guys and doing a lot of individual, getting those guys right. But I wonder, like how it's going to look when the pads are on, and we won't know until training camp starts. So
can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
Rodriguez Jr. You kind of mentioned you wasn't sure of his need with this team. He's someone that really hasn't been talked about a lot during OTAs. But what do you think he can bring to this team?
Yeah, he's an interesting guy because his role is very similar to Brian Robinson, kind of this power runner. And I think he's a guy no one's going to talk about until they start doing preseason stuff, until they start going live in practice, and so they start having live periods. Because like when you watch him, his play style is nothing special until contact is involved, and then it becomes electric. So for me, like I think he catches the football fine, he runs fine. But what he really is excellent at is being a punishing, bruising runner with very good vision. And right now they're not doing any of that stuff. So I don't know what his role is going to be. And no one will know what his role is going to be until we start putting the pads on. I think, it's important to remember he's a 6th-round draft pick. So he's going to have to kind of show that he deserves to be on the 53. So what does that look like? He's probably going to have to contribute on special teams. He's probably going to have to do, kind of be excellent at his role. As the 3rd down kind of guy who can replace both, Gibson as a 3rd down back and B-Rob as the 2nd down back, if you've got that guy active on game day. And right now, based on what I've seen, I think Jonathan Williams is probably more ready for that responsibility. But man, I am a big Christian Rodriguez fan. I love watching him play. I think he's going to add a ton when he is ready. I'm just not sure when that's going to be because they don't have pads on. And again, his game is very, very heavily characterized by pads.
Yeah, great. Before we get into Sam Howell, because we got to talk about Sam Howell. Quan Martin and Dyami Brown. These are 2 guys that's not really talked about as much, especially before it's been the 1st-round pick. I know Ron had mentioned a few days ago that they had, looking at him as slot and outside, probably just learning the positions. But Quan, like, what do you see in Quan? What do you think his role is going to be with the team? And Dyami Brown, is him getting back with Sam Howell full-time, is that going to benefit him this upcoming year?
Yeah, so first off, I think Quan has just been super impressive day to day. He's just like he can do everything, everything that you kind of need him to do. And he's got a nice physicality to him. He's got a nice athleticism, great feel. I think really he's going to be a huge piece for this defense if he keeps progressing the way he has been over the last couple of days. So I'm super excited about Quan. And I think it'll be interesting to see kind of when Cam Curl comes back, because he hasn't been practicing, how the roles of that secondary are kind of defined, right? Who really is the true nickel? Is Cam going to be the full-time safety and then someone else is the Buffalo nickel? Is Quan the Buffalo nickel? And then Benjamin St. Juste is the conventional nickel? Like, what's going to happen? And I think that's a big variable that's going to define Quan's usage. But man, Quan's a good football player and he deserves to be on the field. So they in the back end are kind of saturated, honestly, with just a bunch of good football players, because Percy's had a good OTA training, OTA minicamp period. Same with Forrest. It's a good group back there. So
where is Percy playing mostly?
Post safety at the moment.
Okay.
They kind of, there's no true post in this defense, but he definitely seems to be kind of spending most of his time there.
Yeah, cool. Dyami Brown.
Oh yeah, sorry. So Dyami Brown is a guy that I think has actually looked pretty good in training camp, in mini camp and OTAs, and I know I've said everyone's looked pretty good, but him especially, comparing him to last year, I just feel like there's a little bit more consistency to his game, which I'm excited about. Obviously, there's still flashes of inconsistent stuff, but I think overall, like he caught a slant a couple days ago, was able to split the safeties, looked explosive, looked fast, won on a big out route a couple days before that. Still has some drops or inconsistent routes or whatever, but I'd say his general play is trending in the right direction, and he's kind of, I don't know, kind of putting people on notice, feels like a little bit, saying, man, like I have a good relationship with this quarterback. He knows me, I know him, and I think that's good for the team.
All right. quarterback room, Sam Howell. Whew. Going into the offseason, Ron had, Sam Howell's QB1. He's going to have an opportunity to start. From those comments to now, what have you seen in Sam Howell as far as the bad? Let's do the bad first, and then we'll do the good.
Well, I think when you look at big picture, right, there's not a lot of stuff that he's done bad. Obviously, he's thrown picks. Obviously, he's held the ball a long time. Obviously, he's had bad days. I say his first 3 days were pretty good. Fourth day, okay. 5, 6, not great. And then I'd say he kind of rallied, had a very good, solid first 2 days of minicamp, had 2 interceptions yesterday, one of which I don't think was his fault. And then one of the interceptions that he threw earlier in the week, I don't think was his fault either. So I think he's done a good job. He's just been on rhythm, on time, very good, very efficient in the short, intermediate passing game, which has been a pleasant surprise. A little inconsistent with the deeper stuff, but I think those are lower percentage throws, so that does make sense. But I think when you see him, you see the upside and you see the potential, and you see a guy who's playing well enough with the opportunity he's been given. And I think that is all good and exciting stuff for him and for this team. So it'll be really curious again to see them when it's like real football, real pads, because as training camp or as OTAs and minicamp went on, the defense definitely started matching concepts better, playing a lot better, and and made it harder for Sam. But I think he's a guy that's been progressing and looks pretty sharp. Is he going to the Hall of Fame? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's looked good. There's reason for optimism, but still a long way to go yet for him.
Yeah, that's one of my questions was about the defense. Are they, is Jack throwing stuff at Bieniemy he may not be expecting, because Bieniemy is the talk of the town. He's the loud one. So I'm just trying to, do you think it's a little thing going on with them now, or you think we're going to wait a little bit longer until the pads and stuff come on?
Nothing has seemed untoward or unprepared or uncommunicated. It seems like a very professional relationship and good level of competition, quite honestly. And, Jack last year said you want your offense and your defense to be pretty competitive. And I think over the last couple of days, it's been exactly that, pretty competitive. So
what do you think Sam Howell's ceiling is?
That's a good question. In terms of production or in terms of like player comp, what are you looking for here?
Yeah, production. Because we need production and we need stability around these.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year, if he's between 34 and hang on one second, between 3,400 and 3,800 yards, I think that's probably okay. And I think 20 to 25 touchdowns seems very reasonable, especially when you kind of take the aggregate of what Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke did last year. That kind of puts you in that ballpark. So, and if they do that, man, shoot, like that's a heck of a year for him, and that's his ceiling, obviously. So, but I think that would be pretty fantastic if that was what was going on.
Do you have a comp for him for this upcoming year? Not long term.
I don't know. I think
I don't really like comps.
I don't like comps. Look, Fred Smoot. I'm gonna still Fred Smoot. He's always talking about Tony Romo, and I see that a little bit. To me, if he plays like Daniel Jones played last year, like we're gonna be in a good spot. And so
man is gonna want to hear that.
I know, but so think about this: a guy that again played within the offense, didn't turn the football over, elevated the entire system around him, scrambled for a bunch of first downs, won with the design quarterback run game, add some value adds here and there, insulated by the offense as a whole. I think that's what he did. And that is good. Like they went to the playoffs last year, guys. I hate to break it to you. And a big reason was because of Daniel Jones. So
who do you, and this is the last question, Logan. Who do you think is going to have two-parter. Who you think is going to have the biggest impact in this offense, and who do you think is going to be most improved because of Bieniemy in this offense?
Oh my goodness. Biggest impact on the offense and most improved. I think obviously I think Sam Howell is going to have the biggest impact on this offense, right? Because I think he's going to drive the car, he's going to make everything go. I think there's a multitude of people that are going to be most improved, Antonio Gibson is one, right? I think he's going to have a much bigger role. I think Logan Thomas already looks like he's going to be used in a much different way. I think Jahan is going to have a much different role and get much more productive. Like everybody is going like this ship, rising tides raises all ships. Good offensive coordinator, good offensive play calling, good offensive philosophy raises everybody. So I do think everyone is poised for a bigger role and a bigger opportunity. But the names that kind of stick out to me right now, Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, I would say.
That's great. That's great. Logan, again, thank you so much for entering the lab today.
I appreciate you, man, because I was all over the place. My schedule was terrible. You accommodated. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. So let everyone know, because most of the people that watch my show already know who you are, because like I say in spaces all the time, whatever you say is gold. Like it's right, it's true. They know how much I love Logan, but let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, so on the Commanders YouTube page, we're doing stuff there every day. Make sure you check out Logan Lives in the Comments. That's my own personal show. Comes out on Friday, where I answer a lot of these kind of more technical questions. The Take Command podcast, the Command Center podcast, which is on Spotify. My Instagram, Logan_Paulsen82. I think that's everything. But I'm doing a lot of stuff. So, if I forgot something. Oh, and the Take Command podcast. Yeah, Command podcast and Command Center podcast are two different things now. But check them both out. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you. Appreciate you so much. And appreciate all of you out there for what. Thank you all out there for watching. Thank you for listening. This is Red Zone and Lab Podcast. I am Deuce. Remember, do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.
Thank you for listening to Red Zone in the Lab Podcast. Please subscribe to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Remember, do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.